So the irony, which was really well described by some guy in some conservative magazine that I picked up at the airport, but you have these two parties. They're both fighting for a system in which the incumbent party controls everything. They just both want to be that incumbent party, and in a sense, they both want how the country is run to be determined by the party in power in Washington. And neither party really listens to the electorate. They listen to the people who give them money in order to get votes from the people who give them votes. And the real change that we need is to change back to a system where a party represents the people who voted for it rather than simply tries to keep itself in power. Yeah, please clap. I see this a lot in the Middle East. So I wanted to talk a bit about regime change, both here, and again, here it's not a change of party, it's actually a change of regime. How does, not the people in power, but the system by which they get power and maintain it. It's more than just campaign reform. I mean, I wish I could, this is not the place to go into it at great length, but it's a real issue. In a lot of countries, Ukraine is one example, in Egypt, in all these places, it's not good enough to get rid of the guys at the top. You need to change the electorate so that they demand a government, not simply a leader, that gives them a whole new power structure, new administration. What's interesting is in many of these places, suddenly things are changing, and I think it's partly because of social networks, but it's not, oh gee, we can organize a protest with Facebook. It's more, in most of these places, the government controlled a lot. In communist countries, it controlled the economy, it controlled their jobs, it controlled movies they saw. In a bunch of dictatorships, people were personally fairly free, but they had no resources because the king or whatever controlled the economy along with his family or his friends or whatever. Suddenly now, people are making choices. They can go online, they can find stuff out, they can ask questions. But most importantly, they can write their own history. They're putting themselves up on Facebook, and they can no longer be disappeared. They can be silenced one by one, but their voices live on. And that changes dramatically their sense of self, their identity, everything. And it's something people don't get here yet. How, because we're used to this. We talked freely, we were visible and present before we were online. For many people, getting online made the difference.
I think it is a profound catalyst for change. Again, that's, in some respects, my optimism is that we are now living in a world with a digital technology infrastructure that is going to make it harder and harder to contain and close down and hold people in ways that were much more feasible in the past. The thing that I worry about in that context, though, is I still have a sense, when I look at a lot of these opposition movements that have emerged in various parts of the world, that they're still, in their own kind of way, very much driven by a threat-based narrative of their own. You know, the threat is we've got a dictator, we've got a corrupt regime, we've got a set of people that don't value our freedom, but the ability to define a clear opportunity is where I still see the problem.
I'd say it's optimistic, but it's unschooled. I mean, so one of my favorite stories was from Russia back in 1991. This is right after Yeltsin came into power and the Soviet Union was dissolved, and some CNN anchor found some woman in the street who is, how should I say, a middle-aged woman. She was not a specimen of an old lady. She was somebody whose opinion was being sought as an intelligent part of the electorate. And they asked her, so how do you feel about things? And she said, oh, I'm very optimistic. Maybe now we can get what we were promised. As opposed to maybe now we can build what we were promised. And then there was the guy who said, this is so exciting. Our government is going to set free market prices just like yours. And in Egypt, they don't understand, or some of them do, some don't. But the challenge again, people are really optimistic. Now we're going to have our own country. We're going to be proud and have dignity. We're going to vote. They didn't understand the kind of heavy lifting challenge of building an economy, building an administration, delivering education to a large population. This is a segue, but much like I think many entrepreneurs nowadays, they build an app, but they have no idea what it means to build a company that can deliver apps over time, support them over time. So Silicon Valley is just as, in some sense, bedazzled by the hero entrepreneur myth as many places are bedazzled by the free country myth. It's not that easy.
I wanted to go back because one of the things that attracted me to this session was the title. I love ambiguity and paradox, and the title of the session is Change is Irresistible. And irresistible can have many different meanings. So there's one meaning which is that change is going to happen to you, and so resistance is futile, as they like to say. And on the other side, change is irresistible in the same sense that I find chocolate irresistible. I'm irresistibly pulled to chocolate wherever it resides. And I think it's an interesting question to potentially get some engagement from the audience around as we go to Q&A, but is which of these apply? Is it that we're being forced into change and you can't avoid it, or you're drawn into it because of some quest that you're on?
I think both. Or either, or for any particular person, some change is irresistible, some change is scary and you want to resist, but you can't. Partly it depends on, well, do you like your current situation, do you want to change it? But there's lots of research that shows people will cling to the familiar even when they want change. I think the dramatic tension is really a timing thing. Short-term gratification, short-term security versus the long-term change you know you want, but you can't do it every day.
It's interesting because, again, I've been reflecting a lot on these cognitive biases in times of high uncertainty, and I mentioned this notion of magnifying the perception of risk, discounting perception of reward. I think there's a parallel one, which is shrinking time horizons.
Yep.
Things are so uncertain, I can't afford to think about 5 years from now.
Well, another Russia story, when I first got there, you couldn't get anybody to make an appointment more than a day in advance. You'd say, I'm coming to Moscow at the end of the month, and they'd say, great, call me when you arrive. So you arrive, and you say, well, how about next Wednesday? It's now Thursday the week before. Well, check back with me on Monday. Maybe Wednesday would work. Then you call on Monday, and they say, yes, tentatively lunch on Wednesday. Call me tomorrow to confirm. Everything was like a snow day. We'll do our best, but if we fail, there were circumstances beyond our control. And the famous Russian Prime Minister who said in his State of the Union speech, no less, we did our best, but things turned out as usual. So this uncertainty is true. tremendously debilitating. People are afraid to commit. They're afraid to make decisions. I mean, you see it now in our economy. Companies aren't investing. It's not because interest rates are too high.